Hello. Hi, Damon. Hi, Max. Hi, Lasheen.
Hello, how are you?
Good afternoon. Doing
Good.
well, thanks. How are you today?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Good. Thanks for following up, Max. I did
Yeah.
find my Zoom link.
Yeah, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Hey, Amanda.
Thank you. It looks like Damon did as well. Hello, Damon.
I got it. They're going to start sending it to a different address because that's the second meeting in a row where I haven't gotten mine. So I don't know. Who knows? It's weird.
Yeah, normally mine
You're
winds
probably,
up in, excuse me. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we are technically live now. Just
Okay.
not that there's anything wrong with chatting about our
Great.
emails.
Yeah, well, I think we're waiting on Adrian and Dave still. I didn't hear from either of them today confirming their participation. Kate is not able to join the session. So perhaps we can give it a moment, but while doing so, just can check, Damon, if you had any suggestions on the proposed agenda.
Looked fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if in the interest of time, we could go ahead and get started in review, just kind of reviewing where we are with it within our goals.
Sure.
I think, do you happen to know if Dave is back from Winneba? I suspect that they are on their way back or just returning.
I personally don't know if he is back yet. I know he was gone for a pretty extended period. He was gone last week. I don't know if he's back yet.
Okay, great.
I could go to his Facebook page.
Is it possible to share screen with the goals so we can look at it together, or we can, I mean, I guess we could both have it open.
I do have mine open, but if you would rather share a screen, that's fine too.
Okay, well, because it's being live streamed, I don't know if that's helpful for
anyone else in the room. Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
That sounds good. That
you
way
can
anyone
have
can.
access now to share your screen.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks, Lasheen. There we go. All right. Can you all see?
I can see
the grants goals for 2020, 2021. And Damon, would you mind just helping with capturing any notes from today's discussion while I facilitate? Sure. I know we need to make sure we have captured the notes.
Good call. Let me. Speaking of that, I need edit the notes from the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Well, when I just pulled up the grants goals for 2020 to 21, so our 2020 goal was to prepare for the grant awards cycle and adapted for the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think, you know, we have successfully gone through the grant cycle, and we'll be updating on the status of the grants. And I think would propose we also take a moment to reflect on how the process went, so we can think about what we might want to improve for the next cycle. So I think that we met our goal for 2020 in terms of the launch of the grant cycle, and worked with the communications team to get the word out and to receive some high quality applications. Goal number 2, I think is sort of the second part of the grant process that I was alluding to, that we completed in March. And grant goal 3 is kind of where we maybe need to focus now on the scholarship award process. We had set a goal of completing that in April. We're now in May, and haven't really moved forward on that agenda further beyond what was done last year. So I'd propose that might be one of the focus areas for our grants subcommittee in the remainder of this year, in addition to kind of our continued stewardship and liaising role with grantees in preparation for the next cycle. So that's just kind of a quick overview of goals and where we are. But let me just pause here, Damon, to see if you have any reflections on those goals and what we've achieved so far.
I would agree. I think considering the circumstances we were in, especially with goal number 1, I think we did a pretty good job with managing the process, and we got a good adequate number of proposals in, all things considered. So I think we did pretty well. Let's see. And, you know, I think in regards to the review of the proposals that we received, I think we did a good job at maintaining our standards. I think we could have gone down a path that was, you know, maybe the proposals would have been connected to the countries, but not so much to the cities. And I think even though we actually did not give out or plan to give out as much money in grants as we had planned, I think we did the right thing in not doing so. Because I think it's important that we maintain, you know, our standards that include having programs and activities that really are sister city focused.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we did a good job there, even though we did not get as many grants out as we would have liked to. In regards to goal 3, you know, this was something that was being discussed when I first joined the commission back in, I guess, January or February of last year. And, you know, I think it's something that we need to figure out. I agree. It created some concern around that time, back in the early part of 2020. And we've not really needed to deal with that in the meantime because of the circumstances with COVID. But the time will come again where we will need to deal with it. So, you know, the sooner we can discuss and figure out our ideal policy, the better, just so everyone knows where they stand. So there's no confusion or just lack of policy. So yeah, I think having the emphasis in the next, I don't know how long, few months, half a year, to be on the scholarship award process, I think that's a really great priority that we could have.
Great. Thanks for those reflections, and agree overall. Maybe we could go forward. Let me just pause though. I want to make sure that it still makes sense to move forward in discussing the next items on the agenda, which are status updates on the 2020 and 2021 grants projects. Just to kind of quickly take stock of how those are going, any updates and action items around those. I also wanted to propose we just kind of clarify going forward who are the liaisons. I see that was mentioned in goal 2, to have in-person check-ins, which probably still isn't realistic, but at least some sort of virtual follow-up with grantees at key junctures. So make sure that those roles are clear, and we've kind of divided up or redivided the different grants projects. And I think continuing to track on the 2022, which are still on hold or in process. They got extended due to COVID. So we need to make sure we're following up with those grantees as well systematically. Another point on the agenda was just around any additional process improvements for the next grant cycle. And then finally, the travel scholarship guidelines and how to move that forward as our next priority. So we might be able to at least make some process decisions or recommendations today, Damon, but since we don't have the full subcommittee present. Does that make sense?
Sure. Is there anything wrong with this meeting?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a requirement for subcommittees. Max, do you
Yeah,
have
I
any
don't
guidance?
either. I don't either. You know, I thought about it when you guys started. So, and we are waiting for maybe potentially Dave and Adrian. I don't know if the same rules apply.
Maybe we can treat this as a kind of a work session and
Yeah.
in terms, but
You have
not
enough
a
to meet.
decision. Yeah, a decision.
Mhm.
I don't think there's any decision that needs to be taken today. It's rather how do we move our work forward.
Okay.
So I would propose we focus just on moving forward and
Sure.
and then we can, any decisions we can take to the full commission, I think.
Right. And there's nothing wrong, even if this ends up not being a formal meeting between the two of us, two representatives or two commission members can gather and discuss. So
Okay.
Here we are.
Great. Well, maybe we can just charge ahead and use this time, Damon, just to review a few other things, at least in terms of next steps with our grants, if that makes sense then.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. I'll stop share of the goals. In terms of the status update, I've kind of put together a table with our 2020 and 2020, well, 2019 and 2020 grant cycles in terms of the grantee projects. I can share that and add any kind of notes around status of those, but I was thinking that that could serve as a bit of a dashboard for us going forward. So that's something I can follow up with the rest of the subcommittee on afterwards, and we can use that also to just clarify roles among, kind of a liaison role with each grantee and make sure we have that's clear to everyone who's following up with who. Okay, one moment while I pull that up. Okay. Do you see this table?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is still in process, but I thought I could at least jot down any notes around these different projects. And similarly, I've got it for the 2019-2020 grants here with a little more incomplete information, but actually I can, that one I know. So in terms of this cycle, this most recent cycle, I have Kate down as following up, and I know she's been following up with both of the Wayway related grant projects, number 1 and number 3. I think she's been our key focal person, but it sounds like we'll probably need to identify a new liaison. I don't have the latest, but I know she's been in close contact with Rachel around the postage and kind of some of the logistics around the exchange of portraits. So that seems to be moving forward well. Is there anything else on that one, Damon, that you're aware of?
I don't think so, other than, I mean, I think well, and it's not really grant focused. No, I was just thinking about the need to formalize our relationship with Wayway, but that's not really specific to that particular grant. So no, I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
hopefully we'll be able to soon get a new Huawei liaison who can kind of take the lead on these. That would be nice.
Great. So similarly, it's probably the same points, maybe skipping down to number 3, any additional, that one I think is also moving forward, and Kate has been in touch with the Ixaton Foundation team. And so we'll just need to get the update from Kate. But I think that that's moving forward as well, and is not travel dependent. Okay. Anything, let's see, Damon, on the bridge speak project on portraiture across the 4 cities, is there any update there that you'd want to share?
I have not gotten any communication there, and don't have anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not communicated with them.
Okay, so maybe we can look at where the last communication, I think the last communication was probably the announcement of the formal announcement of the award. So perhaps after this session today might be a good time, once we clarify who's following up with who, if you're willing to continue to serve as the liaison here. I think that was you, right? I just want to make sure I've got that correct.
I mean, I don't remember being kind of assigned to communicate with them, honestly.
Yeah.
But I remember, I mean, drafting language for a response, I believe.
Okay. That's
Maybe
fine. I think
I don't think I was aware that I was to be communicating.
I don't think it's a clear role, which is why part of why I suggested on our agenda that we clarify that role. We all divided up the projects during the grant review cycle and the communications to the grantees, but now we might want to, I would propose divide those up for kind of continued, just as points of contact. In this case, there's not one city liaison. I mean, it cuts across multiple cities, so we might need to just decide, and we can revisit the assignments too. Okay, so that one we can revisit. I'll just highlight for confirmation, but at this point we don't have any new information. Winneba related projects, I think, are moving forward well. I think both last year's project and the Pen Pal project grantees were on this most recent Winneba trip, as I understood it. So we should have more of an update soon coming back from the trip. But that's exciting that those 2 are moving forward.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear what kind of progress they made over there on that.
I'm not aware that there was any fire department involvement in this most recent Winneba trip, but Dave would have the most up-to-date information on that too. We did, I think what we heard most recently from the fire department was that this would probably be a late 2021 activity, probably involving another trip to Winneba, if I'm remembering correctly. So, but it was penned for later in 2021. So we need to sort of see what the plans are for moving that project forward. Okay. And similarly, similar story, I think, for the Poggio project, musical project, musical exchange from the previous year's grant cycle to that one is intended to move forward, possibly, hopefully later this year as travel is opening up. I think that they were actually going to go ahead, Wes and Kelly, to get plane tickets. I think we were moving toward booking their flight, but I haven't heard if that's been purchased yet and they have a reservation. So but it sounded like they were hoping to make that trip later this year. Okay. And we'll need to assign, I guess, liaisons for these different grants follow-up. So perhaps we can connect after this meeting. I can maybe make some suggestions there and share them with the rest of the subcommittee, and just to kind of divide up and see if, and we'll need to get feedback from Kate too on what might make sense for some sort of handoff of the Wayway projects as she transitions off of the commission. Okay. Is there anything else, Damon, on the grant status updates?
I just, it'll be good for us to meet and figure out, or communicate, maybe not meet, and determine, how this is going to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the sake of clarification. I mean, I honestly didn't, I mean, I'm not opposed to communicating with folks, but maybe I missed it. I just didn't realize I was supposed to be doing that.
No, it wasn't a clear role and we didn't have that role in the past year. I mean, and maybe it's just that it's something that was assumed I would do altogether, which is okay, but I would also welcome having, especially where we have city liaisons. I think, is there a handover from the grants committee to the city liaisons for follow-up? What's our responsibility for kind of tracking? So I was thinking this dashboard tool might be helpful going forward as a place to provide status updates, but just make sure that we have kind of a key focal person who's just keeping an eye or can be a contact in developing that relationship with the grantees. And the city rep probably makes the most sense for most of these, but that might be something we can further define that role. I don't think it's been defined in the past.
It might be a good topic for a general, one of our regular meetings to, determine if our city reps are the liaisons for these, or if it's like a city rep in partnership with a grant committee member. I mean, I tend to think the city rep would be ideal because they know the most about the city.
Yes.
And can ask the right questions and know the right people. That's not to say I would be glad to do it too.
Yeah. I think the city rep has been looped in all the communications with the grantee, and so maybe that could be a good general discussion around the role of the city rep and kind of in partnership with the grants team in terms of building relationships with the grantees and kind of the follow up on projects and so forth, so that there's kind of that bigger picture view on behalf of the city rep too as to how the grant project is moving forward. But I think our responsibility is to also support the grantees and make sure that the project's moving forward, and there's some kind of feedback to the full commission on that project. The other piece is I think tracking on when expenses or requests for reimbursement have come in, and I think, Max, that comes through your office typically. So maybe through this dashboard, that would be a way, kind of a tracker for us to know where that's another signal that there's been some movement or some sort of action, and so it'd be nice to just have some sort of progress update as the grant project moves forward. So I think that's another point of information that we can add into our tracker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we try to keep Mr. Grinnell abreast of everything that's going on. We normally send him an update right before each of your regular meetings in terms of expenses and whatnot. I'm sorry, Damon, I don't know if it's hard to hear me. I could put a headset on.
I hear you. I'm just
okay.
Taking that.
Okay. So yes, I mean, if you think there may be some type of additional way that we could help, then we can certainly discuss that. But that's typically how we do that right now. And I also wanted to add, as you talk about Wayway, I had discussed the Plebin seat with Keena, and she doesn't feel like that seat actually needs to be removed. And if that is the case, and if Joan is interested, then you may already have a built-in rep for Wayway. So it's just
like a space.
Yeah. So just an idea, I mean, if Joan would be interested. I'm not sure, I've mentioned it to Kate before. I'm not sure if they've had that discussion yet, but just so that you're aware.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Max. Great. So I think follow-up items will be for me to circulate the dashboard, and within the subcommittee, we can I'll make sure that's saved on the Google Drive, and everyone can add in any updates. So we can just use that as a place to add updates as they come. I think it will be good to maybe figure out with Michael Grinnell too, with the budget tracking and that information to just how, maybe we can periodically get any updates on grants related reimbursements to, just as an input, and to know that a particular project is moving forward or closing out. And then I think perhaps we can also just clarify too, in terms of follow up. I think our responsibility as a grants committee is to make sure that the project is executed as planned and successfully. The grantees receive support and and connection as where possible through the commission to look to some of our local contacts in the different sister cities, and that we provide some sort of opportunity. There's an expectation of a report to come back at the completion of the project, and so we want to make sure that that is received and can be shared and potentially presented to the full commission too, and making those arrangements. So maybe we can just write a little bit of a kind of just a description of the role of the grants committee in following up on these items once a project has been executed or is in execution, so that can kind of live on in just our routine commission or subcommittee responsibilities. So I can take a stab at that and circulate it along with the dashboard as a next step from today's session. Okay. Damon, the next point on the agenda was to discuss any process improvements for the grants cycle. And so I just wanted to see if you had any reflections too on ways we could improve the process, making it more effective and efficient. And so any thoughts around that that you'd want to share? I wanted to make sure we captured some of that while it's somewhat fresh in our minds, right, and can incorporate it in our next cycle.
Well, it was definitely a unique year.
Yeah.
One that we will hopefully not have to repeat. And I wish this is the only one I've been through, so it's hard to compare to previous ones. I think we did a good job on our flexibility that we had when we were, deciding whether or not to extend our deadline, and I think we communicated well. I'm trying to think back to circumstances that could have been better, considering what we were going through at the time. I mean, we obviously started later,
Yeah.
Which pushed us back. I mean, I think, and that has a lot to do with not being able to meet on our regular schedule. But I mean, our year-to-year regular schedule.
Yeah. And I would assume we'll probably want to recommend to the commission, probably at the annual retreat, that we get back on the the routine schedule of receiving applications before the end of the calendar year, and making those awards. And I think January was the original timeframe. I'll double check what it looked like in past years, but I would assume we would probably want to recommend getting back on the old schedule
Yeah,
post-COVID.
I think so. I mean, I think we're going to be in a pretty good place, Lord willing, in the winter time, and maybe we'll even be meeting in person again one day. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know if I would change anything this year that, based on the things that we did. I mean, I think most of the things I would change would be based on the fact that we were in COVID time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I can't think of any part of the process that I would alter. I think our review process was very good. I think the committee spent adequate time and clearly were comfortable with knowing about the grants. So when we reviewed them, so I don't think anyone was unprepared. So I would have no complaint there. I mean, I think we did a pretty good job.
I was just reflecting on whether, we had set a goal of awarding more than we were able to award in the end, although we had one strong application withdrawal. And then some of the applications were more appropriate for sponsorships, like events such as the Festival of the Book. And so I think one of my recollections is that we want to be clear too about what the grants, in our communications, what the grants opportunity is for, and sort of in relation to other opportunities such as scholarships to be developed in the future and sponsorships. So we might want to further define kind of the differences in what process you use for what purpose, for our community to better understand, what the different, available opportunities are through the commission. Since some of the grants applications came in, or some of the sponsorship applications came in as grants projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Because especially with some of the differences between grants and sponsorships. I mean, that also wasn't always clear to me. I mean, right. as a new person. So I'm sure that those who are, interested in getting grant funding, when they think grant, they think money to do a project, and for them, a project might be a one-day event. So if we don't define a grant, if a one-day event is not worthy of a grant in the eyes of our commission, then we need to make that clear one way or another.
Mm-hmm. The other thought so maybe what we could be envisioning to kind of go with the application in the future would be something like an FAQ or something, or we could maybe, or we can expand a little bit the instructions, but figuring out how we communicate kind of these different opportunities to the wider public, especially as we define further any kind of sponsorship opportunity, that would be good. And then the other is the work that we're doing on expenditure guidelines. I think, there is a line in the application for grants about, seeking reimbursement. This is a reimbursement base. And then there can be, I think there's mention of the possibility of a fiscal intermediary, but I think it would be good to, as we're working on expenditure guidelines as a commission, also to look at kind of how the grants, grants related expenditures are managed too within that. Because I don't think it was explicit in the guidelines we looked at together last week. And we could probably provide a little more guidance to grantees around that in the future. I think we fielded already a few questions, just, in the first few weeks after the grants were awarded. And so perhaps we can go back to some of those questions. And Max, you probably have fielded a lot of those yourself. So we can figure out kind of what are the commonly asked questions among grantees about how to seek reimbursement and so forth, and what are acceptable, expenditures, et cetera.
Yeah. So thus far, anyone that's reached out to us, Kina has been the point of contact on that, so I can get with her and see what types of things or questions people may have had and give you some feedback.
Great. Thanks. That sounds good. I think those are my main reflections on the process. And then maybe as we were discussing, Damon, we can also maybe clarify further kind of our protocols in terms of points of contact, once we award the grant, who kind of making sure we, what's the responsibility of the city liaison or the city rep? What's the responsibility of the grants committee? Who serves as the principal point of contact for grants projects going forward? So we can be clear too with the grantee. Okay.
Sorry to not communicate much.
No, thanks. I'm trying to jot a few things down too. Okay, well, the last item, Damon, and I'm suggest we probably could just take this down as our next priority, which is the scholarship guidelines. I shared here the link of the principles and process that the grant subcommittee worked on last year, right before COVID hit. And we had made some progress there, and we're on the verge of presenting it and discussing it with the commission. So I think maybe what we need to do is probably all review this more closely, and then perhaps plan to discuss this either on the next commission agenda, potentially to get feedback from the larger commission around the scholarship program. And then we could maybe use that feedback to further develop the guideline for scholarships. But right now what we have is sort of a conceptual set of principles and kind of indicative process, and it needs some further review. So that's what I would propose, since we don't have the full subcommittee quorum to discuss it today, but maybe we each need to take a little time to review and can decide if we'd like to put it on the agenda for the next commission meeting. How does that sound?
I have a question for Max and Kina. What circumstances can elicit the need to reschedule regular commission meetings? Not like a full-time, all-time rescheduling, but if, like, for example, none of the committee chairmen could be there. Is there a place for rescheduling within like a week or so?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's relatively easy. All I would have to do is get with the communications department to make sure that they would be able to stream the meeting. So as long as they have the time available, then we should be able to reschedule it pretty easily.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah, we tried to avoid days where council has a meeting, but other than that,
right,
it's pretty simple.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Sorry about that, Amanda. I'm probably not going to be able to be at our next meeting. That's not to say that, I mean, if Kate can be there, well, I should say at our next scheduled meeting, which is supposed to be June 15th. Is that right? I think that's the third. Third month or Tuesday of the month.
Yes, that's what I have on my schedule.
So that's our next scheduled meeting. Yeah. I will not be able to be to that meeting, unfortunately. Okay. But as long as Kate can be, I mean, does the chair have, I mean, I would presume that it's preferable for the chair to be there. But it could be, well, We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But if neither I nor Kate can be there, do we have to postpone?
I would say would be in the group's best interest of
Yeah, I
postpone,
would think so.
yes.
Okay. Well, I'll get with Kate and see if she plans to be there if she can. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a good flag. And Damon, it would be great if you could take a look at the draft scholarship
Yes.
principles and process and share any feedback. And if you feel like it's something that would be good to go ahead and start discussing with the full commission in June,
Okay.
if you feel, or if you think we need more internal discussion among the subcommittee, we can do that and then maybe target July to have a fuller discussion with the commission.
Yeah, I will definitely check it out.
Okay, and I know Dave was very actively involved in thinking, kind of conceptualizing this too in the past, and so he has, I think, some, a good understanding of this and this practical application of the scholarship process, since he's helped to navigate that already with a few grantees. So it'll be good to engage with him on this too. Okay, well, I think that's it for our subcommittee business, but I'm glad we were able to do a little bit of planning and prioritizing for the next activities of the subcommittee and move forward our grants. And I'll follow up with the dashboard and other items around the roles and responsibilities for grants follow-up.
All right, well, thank you, Amanda. I really appreciate it.
Thank
do
you.
so much, and I'll be doing a little more.
No, thank you. You do too. Thanks, and thanks for helping to take notes too today.
Sure thing. Oh, and if you had a few notes, maybe you could send them along my way.
We
and
can combine them.
Between the two of us, we can combine them. And Max, I presume this will also be made available publicly, so I can look back on the
Yes,
recording and fill in the blanks.
yes.
All right. Great. Okay.
Well, I guess this concludes our subcommittee meeting.
Or whatever it was. Conversation.
A chat. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for being here. And thanks so much for all your support, Max, to the commission. Really appreciate it. And Lasheen as well. Thanks for being here.
Sure.
All right. Take care.
Are you in any further meetings today, Amanda?
No, this is my only one.
Oh, you lucky dog.
I hope the others go well. Are you in all of them?
I'm not in the next one, but I will hang out
have a
until
break.
someone else gets here.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope the subsequent sessions go well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thanks.
See you
Take care.
later.
Enjoy.
Bye. Thank you.